Hi there! So recently I got back from a trip to France that I went on with school. The part I went to was Brittany, which is in this part of France, and the part of Brittany I went to was Clegolec, which is in this part of Brittany. But I'm guessing you're not interested in the geography and are more interested in the embarrassing anecdotes that are inevitable to be born whenever Lizzie leaves the country. And those you shall have. Because it was a French study visit, one of the things we had to do was go and teach English in a French primary school. This was of course terrifying anyway because I'm terrified of children. The primary school we went to was amazing. It was a private school and I'm not going to tell you where it is or show you any pictures because I want to protect these children from any freaks that might be out there. But it was amazing because one side was all just this one massive mural of Alice in Wonderland. It was fantastic. But anyway, I was in there and I was teaching English and it was all good and I had my friends with me and, you know, all going great. I didn't think I was going to mess up this time. But of course, tragedy struck, and it struck in the form of me and my stupidity. So after teaching the lesson, which was basically all about London landmarks and how to get there and directions, that sort of thing, the kids who were about 8 or 9 or 9 or 10 or whatever, they had to ask us questions. It was all going nicely. They were all asking nice questions like, how old are you, where do you live, that sort of thing. One of the kids even asked, what is your number? Which was a little disconcerting and I wondered who taught him how to say that. But that's not the main thing I'm talking about here. One of the questions we got asked was, what is your surname? Each of us told them what it was and we were spelling it out on the board. And then one of us, I can't remember who it was, asked the kid who'd asked us, what is your surname? So he told us and I had the pen, so I was writing it out on the board as he spelt it for me. But he was spelling it in English, you know, the English versions of letters like A, B, C instead of A, B, C. Was that right? I don't know. And he was speaking really quietly in this sort of murmur, so I was straining to hear. Anyway, this is where it gets bad. So he was spelling it out and he came to a letter and he meant to say R, our version of the letter R, but instead of saying R, he said R, which is the French R, and he was speaking really quietly, so all I heard was just this sort of eh sound, so I thought he said N. So I wrote an N on the board and suddenly all these kids are giggling like hee hee hee, and I was like, okay, but I didn't think anything of it. Anyway, I was corrected, rubbed it out, wrote in the R, carried on, all fine and dandy. But later on, we were in the car going back to where we were staying and one of my friends asked, why were they all laughing when Lizzie wrote an N instead of an R? Well, it turned out that in writing an N instead of an R, I had in fact turned the beginning of this child's surname into a naughty French word. To translate this word into English would be to transform it into a very offensive term to describe a rather private part of the female anatomy. Yeah. Just take a moment for that to sink in there. Lizzie wrote that word on the board. It isn't as bad as you might think because fortunately in French that word is about as offensive as bugger. But nonetheless, that is one of the most awkward points I have been at in my life. I'm just glad I didn't know what it was when I was actually in the classroom, otherwise I'd have gone all crazy sorts of embarrassed. But what can you do? I've also eaten my weight in pastry this holiday. Usually I have really bad digestion problems when I eat a lot of pastries, so I should have been doubled over on the floor screaming in agony, but I wasn't, so maybe it's something to do with French pastry? I don't know. I don't know how that makes sense either, but I'm just speculating. Once you come back though, you're kind of in the habit of eating like pain au chocolat and croissant and brioche and everything for breakfast, so toast is suddenly very bland. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this embarrassing little story. I will see you in the near future. Au revoir!